The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps as Sienna Washington shifted her weight in the uncomfortable plastic chair. Her left arm had gone numb 20 minutes ago from holding baby Caleb, while 6-month-old Aria whimpered against her chest and little Marcus burned with fever in her right arm. The emergency room smelled like disinfectant and desperation, and Sienna was drowning in both. "Ma'am, I still need your insurance information," the receptionist called out for the third time, her voice cutting through the chaos of crying children and worried parents. Sienna's hands shook as she tried to balance all 3 babies and dig through her worn purse. The medical forms scattered to the floor and she bit back tears of frustration. Marcus's temperature had spiked to 103 degrees an hour ago, and she'd spent her last $20 on the taxi ride here. Her phone had been shut off yesterday and she hadn't eaten since breakfast. "I don't have insurance," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the noise. "But my baby needs help. Please." The receptionist's expression softened slightly, but her fingers continued typing. "We'll need to set up a payment plan. Someone will be with you shortly." Sienna nodded, bouncing Marcus gently as his tiny body shivered with fever. She closed her eyes and tried to remember when life had been different. 15 months ago, she'd been a confident swimming instructor with dreams of opening her own aquatic center. Now she was a single mother of triplets, working 3 jobs and still barely making ends meet. A movement caught her eye, and she looked up to see a man in an expensive suit sitting across from her. He'd been staring for the past 10 minutes and something about his face seemed familiar. She tried to place him, but exhaustion clouded her thoughts. The man stood up and walked toward her, his polished shoes clicking against the linoleum floor. "Excuse me," he said softly, "but are you Sienna Washington?" Her heart stopped. She knew that voice. Those eyes. The scar on his left temple that hadn't been there before. "No," she lied quickly, turning away from Cole Hendricks. "You must have me confused with someone else." But he was already kneeling beside her chair, his face filled with recognition and something else she couldn't identify. "You saved my life," he said quietly. 15 months ago by the river. You pulled me out of my car and performed CPR. Sienna's chest tightened. This was the last thing she needed right now. She'd hoped never to see him again, never to be reminded of that day when everything had started falling apart. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You disappeared before I could thank you," Cole continued, his voice gentle but persistent. "I've been looking for you ever since." Marcus let out a sharp cry, and Sienna's attention snapped back to her sick baby. His fever was getting worse and she could feel panic rising in her throat. "I need to focus on my son right now," she said firmly. Cole's eyes widened as he took in the 3 babies in her arms. "These are your children?" "Yes, and one of them is very sick, so if you'll excuse me." "Let me help," Cole interrupted. "I can get you seen right away. I know people here." Sienna wanted to refuse, but Marcus's labored breathing made the decision for her. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford when her child's life was at stake. "Why would you do that?" "Because you saved my life and I never got to properly thank you." Cole was already pulling out his phone. "Dr. Martinez? It's Cole Hendricks. I need a favor." Within minutes, a nurse appeared and escorted them to a private room. Sienna watched in amazement as Cole's influence opened doors that had been firmly closed to her. The pediatrician examined Marcus thoroughly while Cole held Aria and Caleb, surprising her with his natural ease around babies. "He has a severe ear infection," Dr. Martinez explained. "We'll need to start him on antibiotics immediately, and I want to keep him for observation overnight." Sienna's stomach dropped. "How much will that cost?" "Don't worry about it," Cole said quietly. "I'll take care of everything." "I can't let you do that," Sienna protested even as relief flooded through her. "You can and you will," Cole replied firmly. "You saved my life without expecting anything in return. Let me return the favor." As the nurses prepared Marcus for his overnight stay, Sienna found herself studying Cole's face. He looked older than she remembered, more serious. Success had changed him, but there was still kindness in his eyes. "Why were you here tonight?" she asked suddenly. Cole hesitated. "I volunteer here sometimes. Tonight I couldn't sleep, so I came to read to the children in the pediatric ward." He paused. "I never expected to find you." The coincidence felt too strange to be real, but Sienna was too exhausted to question it further. Marcus was getting the help he needed, and that was all that mattered. "Thank you," she whispered, meaning it more than she'd ever meant anything in her life. Cole handed her his business card, the same gesture he'd probably made 1,000 times in boardrooms and business meetings. But his hands were shaking slightly, and his voice was different when he spoke. Please don't disappear again. 15 months earlier. The November air was crisp against Sienna's face as she jogged along the riverside path, her 3-month pregnancy barely showing beneath her running jacket. The morning sun cast long shadows across the water, and she tried to focus on the rhythm of her footsteps instead of the conversation she'd had with Dr. Peterson the day before. Triplets, she whispered to herself, still unable to believe it. 3 babies. 3 college funds. 3 times the love but also 3 times the worry. Kevin had walked out 6 weeks ago when she'd first told him about the pregnancy. I'm not ready for this, he'd said, as if readiness was something you could schedule like a dentist appointment. I need to find myself. The sound of screeching tires snapped her attention back to the present. A black sedan was careening toward the guardrail, its driver slumped over the wheel. Sienna watched in horror as the car smashed through the barrier and plunged into the icy river below. Without thinking, she kicked off her shoes and dove into the water. The cold hit her like a physical blow, stealing her breath and making her muscles seize. But she pushed forward, her swimming instructor training taking over as she fought against the current. The car was sinking fast, its front end already submerged. Through the murky water, she could see a man trapped inside, unconscious and bleeding from a head wound. The driver's side door was jammed, but the passenger window had shattered on impact. Sienna took a deep breath and dove under, squeezing through the broken window. The man was heavy, his expensive suit waterlogged and pulling him down. She hooked her arms under his shoulders and kicked toward the surface, her lungs burning with the effort. They broke through the water together, and Sienna gasped for air as she pulled him toward the shore. Several joggers had gathered on the riverbank, shouting instructions and calling 911. Strong hands reached down to help pull them both onto dry land. The man wasn't breathing. Sienna immediately began CPR, pressing her hands against his chest and breathing life back into his lungs. Water came up with each compression and she could taste the river on her lips. Come on, she whispered between breaths. Don't you dare die on me. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the man coughed violently and water poured from his mouth. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. Just lie still, Sienna told him gently. Help is coming. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder as they approached. The man tried to sit up, but Sienna kept a firm hand on his shoulder. What's your name? She asked, trying to keep him conscious. Cole, he mumbled, his voice weak. Cole Hendricks. Well, Cole Hendricks, you're going to be just fine. You've got a nasty cut on your head, but nothing that won't heal. His eyes focused on her face, and she saw intelligence there despite his confused state. You saved me, he said simply. Anyone would have done the same thing. No, Cole said, his voice growing stronger. Not anyone. What's your name? The paramedics arrived before she could answer, pushing through the crowd with their equipment. Sienna stepped back as they took over, watching as they stabilized Cole and prepared him for transport. Ma'am, we need to check you out too, one of the EMTs said, approaching her with a blanket. You were in that water for a long time. I'm fine, Sienna assured him, though her teeth were chattering uncontrollably. Just cold. At least let us take your temperature and make sure you're not going into shock. As the paramedic examined her, Sienna caught Cole's eye as they loaded him into the ambulance. He was trying to say something, but the oxygen mask muffled his words. She thought she heard him ask for her name again, but the ambulance doors closed before she could respond. The crowd began to disperse as the excitement died down. Sienna gathered her shoes and jogged slowly home, her wet clothes clinging to her skin. She had 3 classes to teach that afternoon and bills to pay. The dramatic rescue already felt like something that had happened to someone else. Back at her small apartment, she changed into dry clothes and made herself a cup of tea. Her hands were still shaking, but she told herself it was from the cold water, not from the reality of what had just happened. She'd saved a man's life, but she'd also put her unborn babies at risk. The guilt hit her like a wave. What if something had happened to the triplets? What if the cold water or the physical exertion had caused complications? She placed protective hands over her still flat stomach and made a silent promise to be more careful. That evening she turned on the local news and saw Cole's face on the screen. Local businessman Cole Hendricks was rescued from the Millbrook River this morning after his car went through the guardrail, the anchor reported. Hendricks, CEO of Hendricks Industries, was taken to General Hospital where he's listed in stable condition. Police are still investigating the cause of the accident, but witnesses say a mysterious woman dove into the river to save him before disappearing from the scene. Sienna turned off the television and went to bed early. She had bigger things to worry about than being someone's mysterious hero. She had 3 babies coming, no partner to help her, and a future that felt more uncertain with each passing day. She never imagined that 15 months later, that same man would be sitting across from her in an emergency room, offering to save her life in return. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors tracking Marcus's recovery. Sienna sat in the chair beside his crib, watching his small chest rise and fall with each breath. The antibiotics were working and his fever had finally broken just after dawn. Arya and Caleb slept in the portable cribs the nurses had brought in, their tiny faces peaceful in the morning light. Sienna hadn't slept at all, but she felt more relaxed than she had in months. Her baby was going to be okay. A soft knock on the door made her look up. Cole stood in the doorway holding 2 cups of coffee and a bag from the hospital cafeteria. He'd changed out of his expensive suit into jeans and a sweater, looking more approachable but somehow even more handsome. "I thought you might be hungry," he said quietly, not wanting to wake the babies. Sienna realized she was starving. "Thank you. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to." Cole handed her a coffee and sat in the chair across from her. "How is he?" "Much better. The doctor says we can go home this afternoon if his temperature stays normal." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, sipping their coffee and watching the babies sleep. Sienna studied Cole's profile, trying to reconcile the successful businessman with the drowning man she'd pulled from the river. "You never told me your name that day," Cole said suddenly. Sienna looked down at her coffee. "I didn't think it mattered." "It mattered to me. I searched for you for months. I hired a private investigator, put ads in the newspaper, even offered a reward. Nothing." "Why?" The question came out sharper than she'd intended. Why did it matter so much? Cole was quiet for a long moment, his hands wrapped around his coffee cup. "Because you risked your life for a complete stranger. Because you stayed with me until help arrived, then disappeared without expecting anything in return. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" Sienna thought about the past 15 months, the struggle, the loneliness, the constant worry about providing for her children. People do what they have to do. No, they don't. Most people would have called 911 and waited for someone else to handle it. You didn't hesitate. I was a swimming instructor. I knew what to do. "You were pregnant," Cole said quietly, and Sienna's head snapped up. "I saw the news coverage later. One of the witnesses mentioned it to a reporter. You risked not just your own life, but your baby's life to save mine." Sienna set down her coffee cup with shaking hands. "How did you know it was me?" "Last night, I mean. It's been over a year. I've been looking at your face in my memory every day since the accident. I could never forget it." Cole leaned forward. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Okay. Are you struggling financially?" The question hit like a slap. Sienna's face burned with embarrassment. "That's none of your business. It became my business when you saved my life. And it became even more my business when I saw you last night exhausted, scared, without insurance for your sick child. I'm managing fine on my own." "Are you?" Cole's voice was gentle but persistent. "When's the last time you had a real meal? When's the last time you bought yourself something that wasn't absolutely necessary? When's the last time you got more than 4 hours of sleep?" Tears stung Sienna's eyes. "I said I'm managing." "I know you are. That's not the point." Cole reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you." Sienna stared at the envelope like it might bite her. "I'm not taking your money. It's not charity. It's a debt I owe you. You don't owe me anything. I did what anyone would do." "We both know that's not true." Cole placed the envelope on the small table between them. "My company has been more successful than ever since the accident. I've closed deals worth millions of dollars. I've expanded into 3 new markets. None of that would have been possible if I died in that river. So you feel guilty. I feel grateful. There's a difference." Marcus stirred in his crib, making small baby noises. Sienna immediately stood and checked on him, grateful for the distraction. His forehead was cool to the touch and his breathing was steady. "He looks like you," Cole observed, joining her beside the crib. "People say that." Sienna smoothed Marcus's hair. "They all do, actually. There's no mistaking whose children they are." "Their father isn't in the picture?" The question she'd been dreading. "No. He left when I told him I was pregnant." His loss. The simple statement, delivered without judgment or pity, made Sienna's throat tight. "It's been hard," she admitted. "Harder than I expected. I imagine it would be. 3 babies all by yourself. I have help sometimes. My neighbor Mrs. Chen watches them when I work evening shifts. And there's a daycare at the community center where I teach swimming lessons. Cole nodded thoughtfully. You're still teaching swimming? Part-time. I also work at a diner 3 nights a week and clean offices on weekends. That's too much. It's what I have to do. Cole was quiet for a moment, studying her face. I have a proposition for you. Sienna's guard went up immediately. What kind of proposition? My nephew Tyler is 8 years old. He's terrified of water because of a near-drowning incident when he was 5. My sister has tried everything: group lessons, private instructors, even therapy. Nothing works. I'm sorry, but I don't see how. I want to hire you to teach him. One-on-one sessions at my private pool. I'll pay you double your normal rate. Sienna stared at him. You want to hire me? I want to help you, and I think you can help Tyler. It's a win-win situation. I don't need your pity. This isn't pity. This is business. I need someone with your skills and patience. Tyler needs someone who understands fear and knows how to work through it. Sienna looked back at her babies, all 3 sleeping peacefully in their cribs. The hospital bill alone would take months to pay off, even with payment plans. And that was just one emergency. What would happen the next time one of them got sick? I'll think about it, she said finally. Cole smiled for the first time since she'd seen him in the emergency room. That's all I ask. He left his business card on the table next to the envelope she still hadn't touched. After he was gone, Sienna picked up the envelope and opened it carefully. Inside was a check for $10,000 and a note that simply said, "Thank you for saving my life, Cole." She stared at the check for a long time, her hands trembling. It was more money than she'd seen in over a year. Enough to pay off her debts, buy groceries without counting every dollar, maybe even get her phone turned back on. But taking it would change everything. It would mean admitting she couldn't do this on her own. It would mean accepting help from a man who made her feel things she wasn't ready to feel. Marcus made a soft sound and she looked at his peaceful face. Her pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her children's welfare was more important than her independence. She folded the check carefully and put it in her purse. Tomorrow she would call Cole Hendricks and discuss teaching his nephew to swim. Tonight she would take her babies home and allow herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, things were about to get better. The community center pool smelled like chlorine and echoed with the sounds of children's laughter. Sienna stood at the edge of the shallow end, demonstrating proper breathing techniques to her Tuesday morning class of 6-year-olds. The water was warm against her legs and for the first time in weeks she felt completely in her element. Remember, blow bubbles like you're making a fish face, she called out, making the children giggle. Nice and slow, don't rush it. Little Emma, who'd been afraid to put her face in the water just 2 weeks ago, was now swimming short distances with water wings. Watching her progress filled Sienna with the satisfaction that had originally drawn her to teaching. Miss Sienna, look at me, called out Jake, the class clown who treated every swimming lesson like a comedy show. I'm watching Jake. Beautiful form. As the lesson wrapped up and parents began collecting their children, Sienna noticed a familiar figure sitting in the observation area. Cole Hendricks sat on the bleachers, wearing casual clothes and reading what looked like a business magazine. Her heart skipped, though she tried to tell herself it was just surprise. She'd cashed his check 3 days ago, paying off Marcus's hospital bill and buying groceries for the first time in months without calculating every item. She'd been meaning to call him about the swimming lessons for his nephew, but every time she picked up the phone, she'd found an excuse to put it off. After the last child left with their parent, Sienna climbed out of the pool and wrapped a towel around her shoulders. Cole approached slowly, giving her time to collect herself. Good class, he said simply. You're a natural teacher. Thank you. What are you doing here? I was hoping to catch you after your lesson. You haven't called. Sienna busied herself gathering pool toys and organizing her teaching supplies. I've been busy. 3 babies don't leave much time for phone calls. I understand. But I was hoping we could discuss Tyler's lessons. She finally looked at him directly. Your nephew. The one who's afraid of water. That's right. He's been staying with me while his parents are in Europe on business. I thought this might be a good opportunity to work on his swimming. Where is he now? School. But I could bring him by this weekend if you're available. Sienna considered this. The extra money would be helpful, and she genuinely enjoyed working with children who had fears to overcome. But something about Cole's intense attention made her nervous. Can I ask you something? She said, sitting on the bench and pulling on her jacket. Of course. Why is this so important to you? I mean, lots of kids are afraid of water. Most of them get over it eventually. Cole sat beside her, careful to maintain some distance. Tyler almost drowned in a hotel pool when he was 5. His parents were distracted, and he wandered into the deep end. A lifeguard pulled him out, but he was underwater for almost a minute. Sienna's chest tightened. That's terrifying. He hasn't been near water since. Won't even take a bath without someone holding his hand. My sister is worried it's becoming a real phobia. And you think I can help? I think someone who risked her life to save a stranger from drowning might understand something about fear and courage that other instructors don't. His words hit deeper than she expected. I wasn't courageous. I was just doing what needed to be done. That's exactly what courage is. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the sounds of the community center around them. Children playing in the gymnasium, adults chatting in the lobby, the distant hum of exercise equipment. I have a confession, Cole said finally. This isn't the first time I've been here. Sienna turned to look at him. What do you mean? I've been coming to your classes for 2 weeks. Sitting in the back watching you teach. That's... Sienna wasn't sure whether to be flattered or alarmed. Why? Because I wanted to see who you really are. The woman who saved my life then disappeared. I wanted to understand what kind of person does that. And what did you conclude? Cole smiled. That you're exactly who I thought you were. Someone who cares more about others than herself. Someone who gives everything she has to make other people feel safe and confident. Sienna felt heat rise in her cheeks. You don't know me. I know you work 3 jobs to support your children. I know you haven't bought yourself new clothes in months, but your babies are always perfectly dressed. I know you give every student your complete attention, even when you're clearly exhausted. You've been watching me that closely? I've been trying to figure out how to help you without insulting your pride. Sienna stood up abruptly, suddenly feeling trapped. I should go. Mrs. Chin is watching the babies and I have to work at the diner tonight. Sienna, wait. Cole stood too, his voice urgent. I'm sorry if I overstepped. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. It's not that. She turned back to face him. It's just, I'm not used to people paying attention to me like that. It's been a long time since anyone cared about my well-being. Well, I do care. More than I probably should. The admission hung between them like a challenge. Sienna felt something shift in her chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the heated pool area. I'll teach Tyler, she said quickly before she could change her mind. But I set the schedule and I decide what's best for his progress. No interference from uncle or parents. Cole's face lit up. Absolutely. Whatever you think is best. And this is strictly professional. Swimming lessons, nothing more. Of course. Good. Sienna gathered her bag and headed toward the exit. Have him here Saturday morning at 10. And Cole? Yes. Don't watch my classes anymore. It's distracting. She left him standing by the pool, but she could feel his eyes on her as she walked away. Despite her firm words about keeping things professional, she found herself looking forward to Saturday morning more than she cared to admit. That evening, as she served coffee and pie to late-night customers at the diner, Sienna caught herself thinking about Cole's words. Someone who cares more about others than herself. Was that really how he saw her? Was that who she'd become? She'd always thought of herself as just doing what was necessary to survive. But maybe there was more to it than that. Maybe courage wasn't about not being afraid, maybe it was about being afraid and doing what needed to be done anyway. As she walked home after her shift, Sienna made a decision. She would teach Tyler to swim and she would do whatever it took to help him overcome his fear. Not because she owed Cole anything, but because that's who she was. Someone who saved people, even when she could barely save herself. Saturday morning arrived with clear skies and warm sunshine, perfect weather for a swimming lesson. Sienna loaded her teaching supplies into her beat-up Honda Civic and drove to the address Cole had given her, following her GPS through increasingly upscale neighborhoods. When she turned into the driveway, her breath caught. Cole's house wasn't just large, it was a mansion. The colonial-style home sat on what had to be several acres of perfectly manicured lawn, with a circular driveway leading to an impressive front entrance. She felt suddenly self-conscious about her faded jeans and simple t-shirt. Before she could second-guess herself, the front door opened and Cole emerged with a small boy at his side. Tyler was thin and pale, with dark hair and serious eyes that seemed too old for his 8-year-old face. He stayed close to Cole's side, eyeing Sienna with obvious apprehension. Tyler, this is Miss Sienna, Cole said gently. She's going to help you learn to swim. Tyler looked up at his uncle, then back at Sienna. Do I have to? Nobody's going to make you do anything you don't want to do, Sienna said, crouching down to Tyler's eye level. But I'd like to show you something really cool if you're interested. What? The pool. Have you seen your uncle's pool yet? Tyler shook his head. Well, come on then. Let's take a look. They walked around the side of the house, and Sienna tried not to gawk at the extensive landscaping and outdoor living spaces. The pool area was even more impressive than she'd imagined, a large rectangular pool with a separate spa, surrounded by comfortable seating areas and what looked like an outdoor kitchen. But Tyler had stopped walking the moment he saw the water. His face went pale and he took a step backward. It's okay, Sienna said softly. We're just looking today. No one expects you to get in. I don't like water, Tyler whispered. I know. Your uncle told me about what happened to you. That must have been really scary. Tyler nodded, his eyes still fixed on the pool. Can I tell you a secret? Sienna continued. I used to be afraid of water too. This got Tyler's attention. You were? When I was about your age, I fell into a pond near my house. It was deep and I didn't know how to swim yet. I was underwater for what felt like forever before my dad pulled me out. Were you scared? Terrified. I didn't want to go near water for months afterward. But eventually I realized something important. What? That the water wasn't what scared me. It was the feeling of not knowing what to do, of not being in control. Tyler considered this. So you learned to swim? I did. And then I learned to be really, really good at it. So good that now I help other people feel safe in the water too. Cole had been listening to this exchange with obvious fascination. Sienna could feel his eyes on her, but she kept her focus on Tyler. Would you like to sit by the pool? She asked. Just sit, nothing else? Tyler looked uncertain, but after a moment he nodded. They settled on the edge of the patio, several feet from the water. Sienna pulled out a small notebook and began sketching. What are you drawing? Tyler asked. A fish. Want to see? She showed him the simple drawing and Tyler smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. That's good. Thanks. I'm not much of an artist, but I like to draw the things I see in the water when I'm swimming. Fish, turtles, sometimes even dolphins if I'm at the ocean. You've seen dolphins? Lots of them. They're amazing swimmers, much better than humans. They can hold their breath for 15 minutes. Wow. Cole brought out a tray with sandwiches and lemonade, and they had an impromptu picnic on the patio. Tyler gradually relaxed, asking questions about swimming and marine life. He was clearly intelligent and curious, just scared. Tyler, Sienna said as they finished eating, would you be willing to try something with me next week? Like what? Just touching the water. With your hand. I'll be right there with you. Tyler looked at the pool, then back at Sienna. Will you hold my other hand? If you want me to. Okay. I guess I could try that. Cole looked like he wanted to say something, but Sienna caught his eye and shook her head slightly. This was Tyler's decision to make. After Tyler went inside to play video games, Cole walked Sienna to her car. That was incredible, he said. I've never seen him that relaxed around water. He's a smart kid. He just needs time and patience. Most of the other instructors wanted to start with getting him in the pool on the first day. That would have been traumatic for him. Trust is more important than technique at this stage. Cole nodded thoughtfully. You're amazing with children. I should be. I have 3 of my own. Speaking of which, how are they? How is Marcus feeling? Much better, thank you. The antibiotics cleared up the infection completely. They reached her car and Sienna fumbled for her keys. The mansion loomed behind them, a reminder of the vast difference in their circumstances. She felt small and out of place despite Cole's warm treatment. Sienna, Cole said as she opened her car door, would you consider having dinner with me sometime? Nothing fancy, just a chance to talk without Tyler around. Her heart stuttered. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? She gestured at the mansion, then at her beat-up car. Because we live in different worlds, Cole. This is business, remember? Just swimming lessons. What if I don't want it to be just business? The question hung in the air between them. Sienna felt the pull of attraction, the temptation to believe that maybe, just maybe, someone like Cole could be interested in someone like her. But she'd learned the hard way that fairy tales didn't happen to single mothers struggling to make ends meet. I have to go, she said, getting into her car. Same time next week? Cole stepped back, his expression disappointed but understanding. Same time next week. As she drove away, Sienna caught sight of him in her rearview mirror, standing in his circular driveway watching her leave. She forced herself to focus on the road ahead, not on the way her heart was racing or the warmth that spread through her chest when he looked at her like that. This was just a job. A very well-paying job that would help her provide for her children. She couldn't afford to let it become anything more, no matter how much Cole Hendricks made her feel like she might be worth more than she'd ever imagined. But as she drove back to her small apartment and her 3 babies, she couldn't stop thinking about the way Tyler had smiled when she'd drawn him that fish, or the way Cole had looked at her like she was capable of miracles. Maybe she was stronger than she thought. Maybe she could help Tyler overcome his fear while keeping her own heart safely protected. She just had to be very, very careful not to let Cole Hendricks save her the way she'd once saved him. The diner was nearly empty at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night, just a few regulars nursing coffee and the occasional late-night customer grabbing a quick bite. Sienna wiped down tables with mechanical precision, her body operating on autopilot while her mind wandered to the swimming lesson she'd had with Tyler that afternoon. He'd actually touched the water. Just the tips of his fingers and only for a few seconds, but it was real progress. The look of pride on his face had made all the patience worthwhile. The bell above the door chimed and Sienna looked up to see Cole walking in. He looked tired, his tie loosened and his usually perfect hair slightly disheveled. Their eyes met across the empty diner, and her heart did that familiar flutter she'd been trying to ignore for the past 3 weeks. "We're about to close," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "I just need coffee," Cole replied, sliding into a booth near the window. "And maybe a piece of whatever pie you have left." Sienna poured him a cup of coffee and cut a generous slice of apple pie. She set both in front of him, acutely aware of how different he looked in this setting-expensive suit in a place where most customers wore work clothes and counted their change. "What are you doing here, Cole?" she asked, sliding into the booth across from him. "I was driving home from a business dinner and saw your car in the parking lot." He took a sip of coffee and made a face. "This is terrible coffee. It's diner coffee. What did you expect?" "Fair point." He pushed the cup aside and focused on her face. "You look exhausted." Sienna was suddenly conscious of how she must appear, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, makeup long since faded, the smell of grease and cleaning products clinging to her uniform. "It's been a long day. How long are your shifts here?" 6 to midnight, 3 nights a week. "And you teach swimming in the mornings, plus you have another job on weekends?" "Office cleaning, yes. Saturday and Sunday mornings." Cole leaned back in the booth, studying her with that intense look that made her squirm. "When do you sleep?" "I manage." "That's not an answer." Sienna glanced around the empty diner. Her manager, Rick, was in the back doing inventory and the cook had already gone home. "I get a few hours here and there. The babies still wake up at night sometimes." "Sienna, this is insane. You're going to make yourself sick." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're running yourself into the ground trying to do everything alone." The frustration in his voice surprised her. "Why do you care?" "Because," Cole stopped himself, running a hand through his hair. "Because I do. More than I should." The admission hung between them like a live wire. Sienna felt her pulse quicken, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Cole, we've talked about this. I know what we talked about. I also know what I see when I look at you." "What do you see?" "Someone incredible who doesn't know her own worth. Someone who gives everything to everyone else and never asks for anything in return." Sienna looked down at her hands, rough from cleaning chemicals and constant washing. "You're romanticizing me." "I'm just a single mother doing what I have to do." "No, you're not. You're..." "I'm what?" She looked up at him, challenging. "I'm a woman who got pregnant by a man who abandoned her. I'm someone who works 3 jobs and still can't always pay her bills on time. I'm tired and scared and barely holding it together most days. You're a woman who dove into a river to save a stranger's life while you were pregnant. You're a teacher who can make a traumatized child feel safe in water. You're a mother who would do anything for her children." "Stop." Sienna stood up abruptly. "Just stop." "Stop what?" "Stop looking at me like I'm some kind of hero. I'm not. I'm just trying to survive." Cole stood too, moving around the table until he was close enough that she could smell his cologne. "What are you so afraid of?" "I'm not afraid of anything." "You're terrified. The same way Tyler is terrified of water. But you're not afraid of drowning, you're afraid of floating." The metaphor hit too close to home. Sienna felt tears prick her eyes and she turned away. "I should finish cleaning up." "Sienna." Cole's voice was gentle but firm. "Look at me." She reluctantly turned back to face him. "I want to offer you something and I want you to really consider it before you say no." "What?" "Tyler needs more than just swimming lessons. His parents are going to be in Europe for another 2 months, and I'm not exactly equipped to handle an 8-year-old full-time. I work long hours, I travel frequently, and Tyler is still dealing with anxiety from the accident." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I need help. Professional help." A nanny who understands children, who can be patient with Tyler's fears, who can provide the kind of stability he needs. Sienna stared at him. You want to hire me as Tyler's nanny? I want to hire you as Tyler's nanny, swimming instructor, and companion. Full-time live-in position. There's a guest house on the property that would be perfect for you and the babies. The offer was so unexpected, so generous that for a moment Sienna couldn't speak. I can't do that. Why not? Because it's too much. Because you barely know me. Because you're afraid of what people will think? Because I'm afraid of what I'll think, she said quietly. Cole, what you're offering, it would solve all my problems. Every single one. And that scares me more than struggling does. Why? Because nothing in life is that easy. There's always a catch, always a price to pay. And I'm not sure I can afford whatever price this comes with. Cole stepped closer, his eyes serious. The only price is honesty. With Tyler, with me, and with yourself. What does that mean? It means admitting that you can't do everything alone. It means accepting help when it's offered. It means trusting that sometimes good things happen to good people. Sienna looked around the diner, the worn linoleum floors, the flickering fluorescent lights, the smell of old grease that never quite went away. She thought about her tiny apartment, about Mrs. Chen watching her babies while she worked yet another late shift, about the stack of bills on her kitchen counter that never seemed to get smaller. Then she thought about Tyler's face when he touched the water that afternoon. The trust in his eyes, the pride in his smile. The way Cole looked at her like she was capable of miracles. I need time to think about it, she said finally. Of course. Take all the time you need. Rick emerged from the back room, keys jingling. Hey Sienna, you about ready to lock up? Just finishing, she called back, then turned to Cole. You should go. Will you think about it? Really think about it? Yes. Cole reached into his wallet and left a $20 bill on the table, far more than his coffee and pie cost. For Tyler's lesson tomorrow? Same time as always. He headed toward the door, then paused. Sienna? Yeah. You don't have to carry the world on your shoulders. Sometimes it's okay to let someone help you hold it up. After he left, Sienna stood in the empty diner for a long moment, Cole's words echoing in her mind. She finished her closing duties in silence, her thoughts churning. The drive home took 15 minutes, but she spent another 10 sitting in her car outside her apartment building, staring up at the windows of her small home. Inside, Mrs. Chen was probably asleep on the couch, and her 3 babies were hopefully sleeping peacefully in their cribs. This was her life. This was what she'd built from nothing after Kevin left. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Cole was offering her a chance to change everything. To give her children a better life, to give herself a chance to breathe. But accepting would mean admitting that her best efforts weren't enough. It would mean depending on someone else, trusting someone else, opening herself up to the possibility of being hurt again. As she finally climbed the stairs to her apartment, Sienna realized that Cole had been right about one thing: she was afraid. Not of drowning, but of floating. Not of failing, but of succeeding. Not of being alone, but of not being alone anymore. The guest house was perfect, and that terrified Sienna more than any roach-infested apartment ever could. It sat about 50 yards from Cole's main house, surrounded by flowering bushes that someone clearly maintained with professional care. 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, a living room with large windows that let in streams of morning sunlight. The furniture was simple but expensive, the kind that would last for decades rather than months. The previous owner used it for his mother-in-law, Cole explained as he carried one of her suitcases inside. It has its own driveway, complete privacy. You'd never have to see me if you didn't want to. Sienna bounced Marcus on her hip while Arya and Caleb explored the living room with the cautious curiosity of babies in a new environment. It's beautiful, Cole. But I still don't understand why you're doing this. Because Tyler needs stability and you need security. It works for everyone. Does it? Cole set down the suitcase and turned to face her. Are you having second thoughts? I'm having third and fourth thoughts. Sienna walked to the window that looked out over the pool area. This feels too good to be true. Maybe it's just good. Things like this don't happen to people like me. What kind of people are people like you? Sienna turned back to him, Marcus still in her arms. People who make bad choices. People who trust the wrong men. People who end up pregnant and alone. Or, Cole said quietly, people who risk their lives to save strangers. People who work 3 jobs to provide for their children. People who can make a scared little boy feel safe. Before she could respond, Tyler came running in from the pool area, dripping wet and grinning. Miss Sienna. I went underwater. Like all the way under. You did. Sienna's face lit up with genuine excitement. Show me. They walked out to the pool together, and Tyler demonstrated his new skill putting his whole head underwater for several seconds. It wasn't much by most standards, but for a boy who'd been terrified of water just a month ago, it was a miracle. I'm so proud of you, Sienna said, and Tyler beamed. Uncle Cole said if I learn to swim a whole lap, he'll take me to Disney World. That sounds like a pretty good deal to me. Cole appeared beside them, watching Tyler paddle around in the shallow end with water wings. He's made more progress in 4 weeks than in 3 years of other lessons. He was ready. He just needed someone to meet him where he was instead of where they thought he should be. Is that what you do? Meet people where they are. Sienna glanced at him sideways. I try to. That evening, after Tyler had gone to bed and the babies were settled in their new nursery, Sienna found herself sitting on the guest house patio with a cup of tea. The main house glowed softly in the distance, and she could see Cole moving around in what looked like a home office. She'd been here less than 12 hours and already everything felt different. Calmer. The constant knot of anxiety in her stomach had loosened for the first time in months. A soft knock on the patio door made her look up. Cole stood on the other side of the glass, holding 2 wine glasses and a bottle. Thought you might like some company, he said when she opened the door. I don't really drink. It's grape juice. Tyler's favorite. Despite herself, Sienna smiled. In wine glasses? Everything tastes better in proper glassware. They sat together on the patio furniture, sipping grape juice and listening to the sounds of evening crickets, distant traffic, the pool filter humming quietly. Can I ask you something? Sienna said after a few minutes of comfortable silence. Anything. Why haven't you ever married? Had kids of your own? Cole was quiet for so long she thought he wasn't going to answer. I was engaged once, he finally said. About 5 years ago. Victoria. She was everything I thought I wanted, beautiful, sophisticated, from the right family. What happened? I realized I was in love with the idea of her, not with her. And she was in love with my bank account, not with me. He turned to look at Sienna. We never talked like this. Never just sat together and enjoyed each other's company. Everything was about appearances, about what looked good from the outside. I'm sorry. I'm not. It taught me what I was really looking for. Which is someone real. Someone who sees me, not what I can provide. Someone who makes me want to be better than I am. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Sienna felt her heart racing, but she forced herself to stay calm. Cole, I need you to understand something. What? I can't be that person for you. I'm not here because I'm attracted to you or because I want a relationship. I'm here because my children need stability and you're offering that. I know. Do you? Because sometimes you look at me like... She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Like what? Like you're seeing something that isn't there. Cole leaned forward, his eyes serious. What if I'm seeing something that you're afraid to acknowledge? There's nothing to acknowledge. Isn't there? Sienna stood up abruptly, her empty glass clutched in her hands. I should go to bed. The babies will be up early. Sienna, wait. She turned back to him, her defenses fully raised. I'm not trying to pressure you into anything. I just want you to know that you're safe here. All of you. Whatever happens between us or doesn't happen, you have a home here as long as you want it. The simple sincerity in his voice nearly undid her. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for trusting me enough to come. Later that night, as Sienna lay in a bed more comfortable than any she'd slept in for years, she listened to the quiet sounds of her babies breathing in the next room. For the first time in months, she wasn't worried about tomorrow's bills or how she'd manage everything on her own. But she was worried about something else entirely. She was worried about the way Cole looked at her like she was precious. She was worried about how easy it would be to get used to this life, this comfort, this feeling of being cared for. Most of all, she was worried about the way her heart had skipped when he talked about seeing something in her that she was afraid to acknowledge. Because he was right. There was something there, something growing stronger every day despite her best efforts to ignore it. And that scared her more than any amount of financial struggle ever could. Love was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not when her children's security depended on keeping things professional. Not when she knew how easily fairy tales could turn into nightmares. But as she drifted off to sleep in her comfortable bed in her safe house, Sienna couldn't help but wonder what it would feel like to stop fighting her feelings and just let herself fall. The black cocktail dress had been a gift from Cole's sister Amanda, something appropriate for tonight, she'd said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Sienna stood in front of the guest house mirror, hardly recognizing herself. The dress fit perfectly, her hair was styled in loose waves, and she was wearing makeup for the first time in months. She looked like she belonged in Cole's world, which was exactly the problem. "You look beautiful, Miss Sienna," Tyler said from the doorway. He was dressed in a small suit and tie, looking adorable and nervous. "Thank you, sweetie. You look very handsome too. I wish I didn't have to go to this stupid dinner." Sienna knelt down to adjust his tie. "It's just for a few hours. Your parents' friends want to see you and Uncle Cole wants to show you off. What if they ask about my swimming? Then you tell them you're learning and you're doing great." Which is the truth. Tyler nodded, but she could see the anxiety in his eyes. He'd been living with Cole for 2 months now, and while he'd made incredible progress with his swimming, social situations still made him nervous. "Hey," Sienna said gently, "I'll be right there with you, okay? If you need anything, just look for me. Promise?" "Promise." They walked to the main house together, Tyler's small hand clutched in hers. The catering trucks had been arriving all afternoon, and Cole had mentioned that about 30 people would be attending. It was meant to be a casual dinner party, but Sienna had seen enough luxury events in movies to know that casual meant something very different in Cole's world. The house was transformed. Soft lighting, elegant flower arrangements, servers in crisp white uniforms circulating with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. The guests were exactly what Sienna had expected, impeccably dressed, perfectly groomed, speaking in the confident tones of people who'd never worried about money. Cole appeared at her side almost immediately, looking devastatingly handsome in a dark suit. "You look incredible," he said softly, his eyes warming as they took her in. "Thank you. The dress is beautiful." "It's not the dress." Before she could respond, Amanda approached with a tall, blonde woman in tow. "Cole, darling, I want you to meet Victoria Ashford." "Victoria, my brother Cole?" Sienna felt the blood drain from her face. "Victoria. Cole's ex-fiancée." The woman was stunning, tall, elegant, with the kind of confidence that came from a lifetime of privilege. "Cole," Victoria said, her voice like honey, "it's been too long." "Victoria. I didn't know you were in town." "I'm back for good actually. Daddy's made me vice president of the foundation." She turned to Sienna with cool, assessing eyes. "And you must be the nanny Amanda told me about." "I'm Sienna Washington," Sienna replied, forcing her voice to remain steady. "How lovely. And this must be Tyler." Victoria smiled at the boy, but it was the kind of smile adults used when they were trying to appear child-friendly but had no real interest in children. "Tyler, why don't you go find some of the other kids?" Amanda suggested. "I think the Pemberton children are by the pool." Tyler looked uncertain, but Sienna gave him an encouraging nod. "Go ahead. Have fun." As Tyler reluctantly walked away, Victoria linked her arm through Cole's. "I'm dying to hear about your latest business ventures. Shall we get some champagne and catch up?" Cole glanced at Sienna, and she could see the apology in his eyes. "Actually, I should introduce Sienna to some of the other guests." "Oh, I'm sure she'll be fine on her own," Victoria said with a dismissive wave. "Won't you, dear?" The "dear" was delivered with just enough condescension to make it clear that Victoria saw Sienna as exactly what she was, the help. "Of course," Sienna replied smoothly. "I'll just mingle." She moved away from Cole and Victoria, accepting a glass of sparkling water from a passing server. The next hour was a masterclass in polite exclusion. Conversations stopped when she approached, or shifted to topics designed to make her feel out of place. Someone asked if she'd gone to college, and when she mentioned her associate degree from the community college, the woman's smile became pitying. "How practical," she'd said. Sienna was standing by the French doors leading to the pool area, watching Tyler play with some other children, when she overheard the conversation that changed everything. "She's quite pretty, I'll give her that," a woman's voice said. "Pretty enough, but really what is Cole thinking?" another replied. "A single mother with 3 children? It's so common." Amanda said she literally rescued her from poverty. Can you imagine the desperation? Well, she certainly landed on her feet. 3 babies and a millionaire benefactor? Some women have all the luck. Oh please. You know exactly what kind of woman she is. The kind who gets pregnant to trap a man, then moves on to the next target when that doesn't work. Do you think Cole realizes how obvious she's being? Living in his guest house, taking care of his nephew, playing the devoted single mother. Men like Cole are such easy marks. They think they're saving someone, but really they're just being used. Sienna's hands were shaking as she set down her water glass. She felt sick, humiliated, exposed. These people saw right through her, saw exactly what she was, a charity case who'd somehow wormed her way into their world. She needed air. She needed to get away from the laughter and the knowing looks and the feeling that everyone was staring at her, judging her, finding her wanting. She slipped out through the French doors and around the side of the house, away from the party. The night air was cool against her heated cheeks and she leaned against the wall trying to catch her breath. There you are. She turned to see Cole approaching, his face concerned. I've been looking for you. Are you all right? I'm fine. Just needed some air. No, you're not fine. You look upset. What happened? Sienna straightened her shoulders, summoning what remained of her dignity. Nothing happened. I just realized I don't belong here. What are you talking about? Look around, Cole. These are your people. They speak your language, share your background, understand your world. You're just what? The help. The charity case. The desperate single mother who landed on her feet. Cole's expression darkened. Who said that to you? It doesn't matter who said it. What matters is that it's true. It's not true. Isn't it? Sienna turned to face him fully. I'm living in your house, taking your money, depending on your generosity. How is that different from what they said? Because of who you are. Because of what you mean to me. And what do I mean to you, Cole? Really? He stepped closer, his eyes intense. You mean everything. You mean more than everything. The words hung between them like a bridge neither of them was ready to cross. Sienna felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back. I can't do this, she whispered. Can't do what? This. Whatever this is becoming. She gestured toward the house, where the party continued without them. I can't pretend I belong in your world when everyone can see I don't. I don't care what they think. But I do. I have to. Because when this ends, and it will end, Cole, I still have to live with myself. I still have to look at my children and know that I did what was right for them. What are you saying? Sienna looked at him one last time, memorizing his face in the moonlight. I'm saying goodbye. She walked away before he could respond, before she could lose her nerve. She collected Tyler from the pool area, made polite excuses about the babies needing attention, and returned to the guest house. It took her 20 minutes to pack everything they'd brought. 20 minutes to dismantle the life she'd been foolish enough to think could be hers. Tyler cried when she told him they were leaving. But I'm learning to swim. And Uncle Cole said we could go to Disney World. Uncle Cole will find you another teacher, she said gently, her heart breaking with each word. Someone better than me. She left a note on the kitchen counter, brief and to the point. Thank you for everything. Tyler is an amazing boy and he's going to be fine. Please don't try to find us. Sienna. She loaded the babies into her car and drove away from the mansion, from the life she'd briefly imagined could be hers, from the man who'd made her believe she might be worth saving. In her rearview mirror, she could see the lights of the party still glowing. By now, Cole had probably discovered her note. Maybe he was relieved. Maybe Victoria was already consoling him, reminding him of what he'd almost thrown away for a woman like her. Sienna wiped away the tears that had started falling and focused on the road ahead. She'd survived worse than this. She'd survived losing Kevin, survived being pregnant and alone, survived months of barely scraping by. She'd survived losing Cole Hendricks too. Even if it felt like it might inconvenience her. 3 weeks had passed since Sienna disappeared from Cole's life, and he was going out of his mind. He tried everything, calling her old phone number, disconnected, going to her former apartment, new tenants, visiting the community center where she used to teach. They hadn't seen her since she'd quit to work for him, even checking the diner where she'd worked night shifts. Rick just shrugged and said she'd never come back. It was like she'd vanished into thin air, taking her 3 babies with her. Tyler was heartbroken. He'd stopped swimming altogether, refusing to even look at the pool. He kept asking when Miss Sienna was coming back, and Cole didn't know what to tell him. His sister Amanda had found another swimming instructor, but Tyler wouldn't work with anyone else. I want Miss Sienna, he'd cried just that morning. She promised she'd teach me to swim a whole lap. Cole had hired a private investigator, but Sienna had been careful. She'd paid cash for everything, avoided using credit cards or anything that would leave a trail. The investigator had found records of her working various temporary jobs around the city, a few days here, a week there, but nothing permanent, nothing that would lead them to where she was living now. He'd also found something else, a stack of unpaid medical bills from Marcus's hospital stay. Apparently, Cole's payment hadn't covered everything, and the collection agencies were looking for her. The thought of Sienna struggling again, of her babies needing medical care she couldn't afford, made Cole's chest tight with worry and rage. Not at her, but at himself. He should have made sure all the bills were paid. He should have insisted on giving her more money, more security. He should have protected her from people like the ones at his dinner party. Cole had confronted several of the guests after Sienna left, demanding to know what had been said to her. The women had been defensive, claiming they'd only been making conversation. But their eyes had been guilty and Cole had seen the truth in their faces. He'd asked them all to leave, cutting short his own party. Then he'd sat in his empty house, reading Sienna's note over and over again, trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. Now, 3 weeks later, he was driving through a part of town he'd never seen before, following up on a lead from his investigator. Someone matching Sienna's description had been seen at a public health clinic in one of the city's poorer neighborhoods. The clinic was in a strip mall between a check cashing place and a dollar store. Cole's expensive car looked out of place in the parking lot, but he didn't care. He pushed through the doors into a waiting room filled with tired-looking parents and crying children. "I'm looking for someone," he told the receptionist, showing her a photo of Sienna. "She has 3 babies about 7 months old now. Has she been here?" The receptionist looked at the photo, then at Cole's expensive suit. "I can't give out patient information. Please. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just need to know she's okay." "Are you family?" Cole hesitated. What was he to Sienna? A former employer? A friend? Something more, something she'd run away from? "I'm someone who cares about her," he said finally. The receptionist studied his face for a long moment. "There's a woman who fits that description. Comes in with 3 babies. But she uses a different name." "What name?" "I really can't. Please." Cole leaned forward, desperation clear in his voice. "One of the babies was very sick a few months ago. He had an ear infection. I helped pay for his treatment, but I think there might be more bills she can't afford. I just want to help." Something in his tone must have convinced her. "Sarah Miller," she said quietly. "She's been here twice this week. One of the babies has been running a fever." Cole's heart clenched. "Which baby?" "The little boy. Marcus, she calls him." "Marcus." Sienna was using a fake name, but she couldn't bring herself to call her children by different names. "Is he okay?" "He's been better. But she's been paying cash for everything, and our cash rates are higher than insurance rates. She's been struggling." Cole pulled out his wallet and removed several $100 bills. "For her account. For Sarah Miller. Whatever she needs." The receptionist stared at the money. "Sir, I can't. Please. She's too proud to accept help directly, but her children need medical care. Just tell her someone made an anonymous donation to help families in need." The woman looked at Cole for a long moment, then slowly took the money. "I'll make sure it goes to the right account." "Thank you. Can you tell me, is she okay? Does she look like she's managing?" The receptionist's expression softened. "She looks tired. Really tired. But she's doing everything she can for those babies." Cole thanked her again and left the clinic, his mind racing. Sienna was somewhere in this neighborhood, probably struggling to make ends meet again. But where? He drove slowly through the nearby streets, looking for any sign of her beat-up Honda Civic. The area was rough, run-down apartment buildings, boarded-up storefronts, groups of teenagers hanging out on corners. It was exactly the kind of neighborhood where someone trying to disappear might end up. On his third pass through the area he saw it. Her car, parked in front of a run-down apartment complex called Sunrise Manor. The building looked like it had seen better days about 40 years ago, with peeling paint and broken windows patched with cardboard. Cole parked and sat in his car for several minutes trying to decide what to do. He could go up to her apartment, but she might run again. He could wait and catch her when she came out, but that felt like stalking. In the end, the decision was made for him. Sienna emerged from the building carrying Marcus, who was clearly crying and feverish. Arya and Caleb were in a double stroller, and she was juggling a diaper bag and what looked like a hospital bag. She was heading back to the clinic. Cole got out of his car and called her name. "Sienna." She froze, her back still to him. For a moment he thought she might run. Then she slowly turned around. She looked exhausted. Thinner than when he'd last seen her, with dark circles under her eyes. Her clothes were clean but worn, and her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. But she was still beautiful. She was still the woman who'd saved his life, who'd made Tyler feel safe, who'd made Cole believe in love again. "How did you find me?" she asked quietly. "I never stopped looking." Marcus's crying intensified and Sienna bounced him gently. "He's been sick again. I need to get him to the clinic." "Let me take you." Cole gestured toward his car. "My car is faster and I can call ahead to make sure they're ready for you." "I can't." "Sienna, please. Your pride is not more important than Marcus's health." She looked down at her sick baby, then back at Cole. After a moment she nodded. They transferred the babies to Cole's car, and he drove to the clinic while making calls to ensure Marcus would be seen immediately. The staff recognized him from earlier and quickly ushered them into an examination room. Dr. Peterson, the same doctor who'd treated Marcus months ago, examined the baby thoroughly. It's another ear infection, but this one is more severe. He'll need stronger antibiotics, and I want to keep him for observation. I can't afford, Sienna began. It's covered, Cole said firmly. Whatever he needs. Sienna looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and frustration. Why are you doing this? Because I love you, Cole said simply. Because I love all of you. And because I'm not letting you disappear again. Dr. Peterson cleared his throat. I'll give you some privacy to discuss this. But I do need to admit the baby now. After the doctor left, Sienna sat in the chair beside Marcus's hospital crib, tears streaming down her face. I can't keep doing this, she whispered. You don't have to. Yes, I do. This is my life, Cole. This is who I am. I'm not the woman you think I am. Cole knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. You're exactly the woman I think you are. You're strong and brave and loving. You're the woman who saved my life when you had every reason to save your own energy for your babies. You're the woman who made Tyler feel safe when no one else could. I'm the woman who ran away when things got difficult. You're the woman who protected herself and her children when people made you feel unwelcome. There's a difference. Sienna pulled her hands free and wiped her eyes. Those people at your party, they weren't wrong about me, Cole. I'm using you. Maybe not consciously, but that's what this is. You feel guilty about the accident, and I'm letting you fix my problems because of it. Is that really what you think this is about? Isn't it? Cole stood up and moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. I told you I was engaged once. To Victoria. I remember. What I didn't tell you is why I broke it off. It wasn't just because she was wrong for me, it was because I realized I was settling. I was choosing someone safe, someone expected, someone who would never challenge me to be better than I was. He turned back to face her. And then I met you. Actually met you, not just rescued you. And for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to admire someone. Really admire them. Cole. I admire your strength. I admire the way you've built a life for your children from nothing. I admire how you can make a scared little boy feel brave. I admire your stubbornness even when it's directed at me. Sienna looked down at Marcus, who was finally sleeping peacefully in his hospital crib. You admire an idea of me. But the reality is messy, eh? I know exactly how messy the reality is. I know you work yourself to exhaustion. I know you're scared of depending on anyone. I know you put everyone else's needs before your own. Cole moved closer. And I love all of it. The mess, the stubbornness, the way you fight for your independence even when it would be easier to accept help. Why? Because that's who you are. That's the woman who dove into a freezing river without thinking twice. That's the woman who can make a traumatized child trust again. That's the woman I fell in love with. The words hung in the air between them. Sienna felt her heart racing, but she forced herself to stay calm. Love isn't enough, Cole. No, it's not. But it's a start. A start to what? Me becoming your project? Your charity case. A start to us figuring out how to build something real together. Something that works for both of us. Sienna looked at him, really looked at him. His expensive clothes were wrinkled from carrying babies and sitting in uncomfortable hospital chairs. His usually perfect hair was disheveled. There were lines of worry around his eyes that hadn't been there months ago. You've been looking for me for 3 weeks, she said quietly. Every day. Why? Because the house felt empty without you. Because Tyler won't swim for anyone else. Because I wake up every morning wondering if you're okay, if the babies are healthy, if you're getting enough to eat. And because you feel guilty. No. Cole's voice was firm. Not because I feel guilty. Because I miss you. Because I miss the sound of babies crying at night and your laugh when Tyler tells bad jokes. Because I miss sitting with you on the patio, drinking grape juice and talking about everything and nothing. Sienna felt tears starting again. Those people at your party were jealous, small-minded people who don't matter. I should have stood up for you immediately. I should have made it clear that you weren't just my employee, you were the woman I was falling in love with. But you're not just anything. You're everything. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Excuse me, but visiting hours are almost over. If you're not family. She's my wife, Cole said without hesitation. And these are our children. Sienna's eyes widened, but she didn't contradict him. The nurse nodded and left them alone. Your wife? Sienna asked when they were alone again. Someday if you'll have me. Not because you need rescuing, not because I feel guilty, but because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Cole, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to trust someone not to leave. Then don't trust me yet. Just let me prove it to you. Day by day, choice by choice. Let me show you that I'm not going anywhere. Marcus stirred in his crib, and Sienna automatically reached for him. Cole watched her soothe their baby because that's what Marcus had become, wasn't he? Not just her child but theirs. What about Tyler? She asked. Tyler has been asking for you every day. He refuses to swim with anyone else. He says you promised to teach him to swim a whole lap. I did promise that. Then come home and keep your promise. Sienna looked around the hospital room at Marcus sleeping peacefully, at Arya and Caleb napping in their portable cribs, at Cole standing beside her with love and hope written all over his face. Home. When had she started thinking of Cole's house as home? If I come back, she said slowly, things have to be different. How? No more pretending this is just about Tyler's swimming lessons. No more pretending you're just being charitable. Agreed. And no more dinner parties with people who think I'm not good enough for you. Never again. From now on, the only people who matter are the ones who see how lucky I am to have found you. Sienna took a deep breath. And no more running away. If something bothers me, if I'm scared or overwhelmed, I promise to talk to you instead of just disappearing. I'd like that very much. She looked at him one more time, searching his face for any sign of doubt or pity or obligation. All she saw was love. Messy, complicated, terrifying love. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Okay, let's go home. Cole's smile was brighter than every light in the hospital combined. All of us. All of us. He kissed her then, soft and gentle and full of promise. And for the first time since she'd pulled him from that river, Sienna allowed herself to believe that maybe fairy tales could happen to women like her. Maybe she was worth saving after all. 6 months later. The community center pool was exactly the same as it had been a year ago, the same smell of chlorine, the same echo of children's voices, the same warm water that had once been Sienna's refuge from the world. But everything else had changed. Are you ready, Tyler? Sienna called from the side of the pool. Tyler stood at the deep end, his goggles in place, his face serious with concentration. At 9 years old, he'd grown taller and more confident, but this moment still represented everything he'd overcome. I'm ready, Miss Sienna. Remember what we practiced. Nice steady strokes. Don't think about anything except reaching me. Tyler nodded and dove into the water. His form was perfect, arms cutting through the water, breathing rhythmic and controlled. Sienna walked alongside the pool as he swam, calling out encouragement. That's it. You're doing beautifully. Keep going. From the bleachers, Cole watched with his heart in his throat. Marcus, now 13 months old and walking everywhere, clapped his chubby hands together and babbled excitedly. Arya and Caleb, sitting in their double stroller, seemed to sense the importance of the moment and remained unusually quiet. Tyler touched the wall at the shallow end and popped up, treading water with a huge grin on his face. I did it. I swam a whole lap. You did. Sienna laughed, her voice thick with emotion. You absolutely did. Cole stood up from the bleachers, applauding loudly. That was amazing, buddy. Tyler climbed out of the pool and ran to Cole, not caring that he was dripping wet. Did you see? I did it just like Miss Sienna taught me. I saw everything. I'm so proud of you. Does this mean we can go to Disney World now? Cole laughed. It absolutely means we can go to Disney World. As Tyler went to get changed, Sienna sat on the edge of the pool, her feet dangling in the water. This was where it had all started: her career, her confidence, her love of teaching. And now it felt like a circle was closing. Penny for your thoughts, Cole said, settling beside her. Just thinking about how much has changed. A year ago, I was teaching classes here every morning, going home to an empty apartment, worrying about how I was going to afford groceries. And now I'm teaching private lessons to the most stubborn student I've ever had, going home to a house full of people I love, and worrying about whether Marcus is ever going to sleep through the night. Cole smiled. Some things never change. No, they don't. But the good things are so much better than I ever imagined they could be. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the sounds of the community center around them. It was here that Cole had first approached her about teaching Tyler. It was here that she'd first started to believe she might be worth something more than just survival. Sienna, Cole said, his voice suddenly serious. Ma'am? Can I ask you something? Of course. Cole stood up and moved in front of her, and something in his expression made Sienna's heart skip. He looked nervous, excited, and determined all at once. What are you, she began, but the words died in her throat as Cole dropped to one knee beside the pool. Sienna Washington, he said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket, you saved my life in this pool. Not just that day in the river but every day since. You taught me what real courage looks like. You showed me what it means to love someone completely, without conditions or expectations. Sienna's hands flew to her mouth. Cole, what are you doing? I'm asking you to marry me. Not because you need rescuing, not because I feel obligated, but because I can't imagine spending another day of my life without you as my partner. He opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring, a single diamond surrounded by smaller stones. I know you don't like flashy things, so I kept it simple. But I wanted it to be beautiful because that's what you are. Inside and out. Tears were streaming down Sienna's face now. Cole, I love your strength and your stubbornness. I love the way you make Marcus laugh and how you can get Arya to stop crying just by humming. I love that Caleb reaches for you every morning like you're the best thing in his world because you are. From across the pool, Tyler had emerged from the changing room and was watching with wide eyes. Cole glanced at him and smiled. Tyler helped me pick out the ring. He also helped me practice this speech about 50 times. You practiced. Sienna laughed through her tears. I wanted to get it right. Cole took her hand, his thumb stroking across her knuckles. Sienna, you've given me everything: a family, a purpose, a reason to be better than I ever thought I could be. Will you marry me? Sienna looked at this man who'd found her in her darkest moment and seen light. Who'd loved her children as if they were his own. Who'd fought for her even when she'd fought against him. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Yes, she said louder, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, I'll marry you. Cole slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. Then he stood up and kissed her, right there beside the pool where she'd once taught children to be brave in the water. Tyler came running over, jumping up and down with excitement. She said yes. She said yes. Marcus clapped his hands from his position in Cole's arms, not understanding what was happening but feeding off everyone's excitement. Arya and Caleb babbled happily from their stroller. Does this mean you're going to be my aunt? Tyler asked. I guess it does, Sienna said, ruffling his hair. And Marcus and Arya and Caleb will be my cousins? They already are your cousins, Cole said. They have been from the moment Sienna said she'd come home with us. Tyler grinned. This is the best day ever. First I swim a whole lap and now I get a whole family. As they gathered their things and prepared to leave the community center, Sienna took one last look around the pool area. This place had given her so much: a career, a purpose, a way to support her children. And now it had given her something else. The perfect ending to the most beautiful beginning she could have imagined. Ready to go home? Cole asked. Marcus balanced on his hip while Tyler helped push the stroller. Sienna looked at her ring, sparkling in the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows. Home. She'd spent so long thinking home was something she had to build alone, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. She'd never imagined it could be something built together, with love and laughter and the occasional diaper explosion. I'm ready, she said, taking Cole's free hand. As they walked out of the community center together, Cole carrying Marcus, Tyler chattering excitedly about Disney World, Sienna pushing the stroller with Arya and Caleb, she realized that this was what happiness looked like. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and messy and absolutely worth fighting for. She'd saved Cole's life once in a freezing river, but he'd saved hers in return. He'd shown her that she was worth loving, worth choosing, worth staying for. And as they drove home to their house, their real home, where everyone belonged and no one had to prove their worth, Sienna finally understood what Tyler had discovered in the pool that day. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is stop fighting the water and learn to float. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you find someone willing to swim beside you for the rest of your life. The wedding was small and perfect, held in the backyard of their home with Tyler as the ring bearer and the triplets as the most adorable flower babies anyone had ever seen. Amanda had cried happy tears and apologized for her friend's behavior at the dinner party. Victoria had sent a gift and a note wishing them well, having apparently found her own happiness with someone else. But the most important moment came not during the ceremony, but afterward, when Tyler stood up to make a toast with his glass of apple juice. To Uncle Cole and Aunt Sienna, he said in his serious 9-year-old voice, for teaching me that the best families aren't the ones you're born into, but the ones you choose. And for teaching me that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared, it means you do the right thing even when you are scared. As everyone raised their glasses and cheered, Sienna felt the last of her walls finally crumble. She was home. She was loved. She was exactly where she belonged. And she had never ever been happier to be wrong about fairy tales.